Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. We are going to be continuing with the exceptional story for December, the Icarian Cup, and our beloved friend here has knocked on our door and is asking to come and see us. He is set heavily upon our bed. He is smiling, the kind of wide, fractured smile that masks some degree of anguish. They could rule over us if they felt like it, mutters the excursionist, removing a flask from his jacket and taking a swig. The devils, I mean. They are simply better than us. He stares at you, his eyes haunted. Tell me, my lady, what are your thoughts on the human soul? Is the soul reflective of who we are? So we have two options. We can tell the excursionist that souls are obviously unimportant. The devils seem to value them, but Londoners do just fine without them. As a soulless person, I can definitely agree with that one. Or we can tell the excursionist that souls are clearly reflective of their owners. Why else would the devil prize some souls so highly and hold others in disdain? I mean, it does kind of make sense that because they do have tiered levels of souls, so I'm probably going to say... Actually, I'm going to say they're unimportant. He nods and sits up a little straighter. As I've told you, there is one devil I have loved from the moment I saw him, yet we have only met 3 times. The first time I gave him my heart, the second time I gave him a rose. His shoulders slump. The fond light in his eyes extinguishes. The third time I gave him my soul, a gesture. You know what he said when he took my soul in his hands? He takes another swig. Bland. He spits the word like poison. Sometimes I wonder, have I proved him wrong? He downs the rest of his flask and staggers from the cabin. Oh, the excursionist trusts you with his life. Wow, that was a step up, wasn't it? As the Z miles unfurl beneath your hull, bedraggled bats arrive from London. Messages of support, others of sponsorship, questions from the Gazette. You send back notes on your progress. You're a little ahead of your rival, not by much. There's only a spear's throw behind. Anything could happen. Passing the bleak shores of Mutton Island, you spot strange lights dancing in the shallows. There is something hypnotic about their erratic movement. So we can either try to increase our lead, we can draw on our experience, which is probably not going to happen, ever. We can subtly delay your ship's progress, or we can settle back and see what happens. Well, I kind of want to see what happens with the new sequence, so I'm going to try and increase the lead on our rival. Full steam ahead! You seem to remember an old Z-tale that might come in handy here. Full power to the engines, throw anything heavy overboard. Have we got anything left to throw overboard? Ignore the ominous groans of the hull. You there, hop to it, no lollygagging, all hands, all hands. A wave swamps you, then another. Soaked, spluttering, you struggle with the helm. A dozen burly crewmen dive in to help. Together you steer the yacht out of danger, alongside rather than against the brutal currents. Your racing yacht surges forward, dancing over the waves like a dragonfly. As you draw closer to Mutton Island, you realise the lights are actually lanterns, swinging in the hands of dozens of villagers, all standing knee-deep in the dark water. They watch you glide past without noise or expression. You put on a burst of speed, glad to have kept your distance. You've surely lengthened your lead over your rival even further. The excursionist is attempting to sober up by sticking his head in a barrel of cold seawater. Oof. You gaze out to Z as the fog settles lovingly into your bones. Abbey Rock slides past, a monstrous island cathedral of jagged spires and razor wire. Baleful lights glimmer behind stained glass. Something flutters above. Then alights on your shoulder. A messenger bat, hunched and shivering, with a rolled envelope tied to its tiny claws. What's that? Asks the excursionist, appearing at your side. The letter is addressed to both you and the excursionist. The handwriting is that of a child in a hurry. Hey up, mateys, begins the letter. The rest of the letter is increasingly desperate attempt to get under your skin. Yes, says your rival. Maybe they're behind you now, but just you wait. They are merely biding their time. Soon you'll be the one trailing in last place. Or at least, that's what you think it says. The entire thing is couched in so much obscure Zayla slang, and so messily written that it verges on indecipherable. This changes nothing, says the excursionist, squinting at the letter. Where's my pen, damn it? I must write a response in kind. The gates of the Icarian Canal loom on the distant coast. Gathered at the foot of the gates is a small flotilla. A trio of clippers, a schooner, a great steamship, and a gaggle of fishing boats. All have turned out, it seems, to cheer you on. The crews whistle and stamp as you glide past. Full steam ahead, let's go. This is going to end so badly. As you draw close to the canal, the Z trembles. The gates yawn vastly open and a cascade of transferred surface water floods the Black Z, sending your vessel washing back like a bathtub toy. Fortunately, your crew quickly get the ship back under control and you're back on course in no time. You've surely lengthened your lead over your rival even further. You're miles ahead of your rival. As you leave the great Cumaean gates behind, along with the friendly lights of the ships, the oppressive darkness rushes back with twice the weight. The crew only speak in whispers. Even the Z is quiet. The loudest sound for miles is the weary creak of the hull. Miles of unmapped, enigmatic coastline spool past. Your racing yacht's brave little light seems to only make for a paler darkness. After untold, silent miles, the Z in your path begins to rise. An enormous, curved shape, big as your ship, ascends terribly from the depths, seawater streaming from its carapace, pincers raised and quivering. A Z crab, vaster than any you've seen, its shell maggot white, its eyes a delicate red. Oh dear. Inquire about artillery. You turn to the emulous excursionist and ask, politely as possible, where one might find the cannons on this yacht. I assume we threw them overboard. This yacht is built for speed, mutters the excursionist, not taking his eyes off the crab. No cannons. Oh no. A king among crustaceans. Scars line its pallid shell. Its pincers are as big as lifeboats. Luminescent feelers wind sinuously through the darkness, curling around the rails of your ship. The excursionist vanishes below deck and emerges moments later with his rifle. This one'll look good mounted on my wall. What? He shouts, taking aim. Though I may have to get a bigger wall. One pincer slams shut around racing yacht's rudder. The engine churns uselessly for a moment, then begins to scream as though in pain. You're going nowhere. We have a few options here. We can wait for the excursionist to resolve matters. He knows his way around that rifle, though you're unsure if his bullets can penetrate a carapace thicker than a castle wall. Or we can fend it off with a cutlass. Persuade it to relinquish its grip. Oh wow, if we had the pleasure yacht, we could just carry on like, yeah, whatever, we're a big ship. We could have jumped overboard if we had a notched bone harpoon, which we don't have. Or we can draw its attention to the annotated Seafarer instead. We don't. They're too far away, I feel. Okay, well, let's fend it off with a cutlass and hope we don't fail miserably. In fact, I'm going to spend a hard-earned lesson here. You leap at the crab's claw with your cutlass, but the sword glances uselessly off the chitin. Irritated, the crab swipes at you, sending you sprawling. You put the pain aside and stand up. You can count your broken ribs at a later date. The crab strikes at you again. This time, you hitch a ride, clinging frantically at the pincer and starting to climb. It's slow work, but the crab can't shake you off. Finally, you clamber up to the top of its shell, dangle down, and methodically stab at its eyes until it's sorry. The vast crab screeches in agony, relinquishes its grip on your vessel, and sinks hastily back to the depths. Your crew applaud furiously as you climb back on board. That is very heroic. Your ship weaves a path between the swampy isles of the Sea of Autumn. Insects teem at your lips, your collarbone, the corners of your eyes. Unidentifiable birds squawk overhead. You are nearing the Grand Geode. This is, perhaps, your last chance to change the outcome of the cup. At this point, I think we're pretty hard set in where this is going, so let's continue to increase the lead on our rival. The waters here can be treacherously shallow, but your ship steers out of reach of the tangled mangrove roots and clinging mud. Soon, the swamp isles are behind you, and you're making good time. You've surely lengthened your lead over your rival even further. The excursionist has retreated to his cabin to write up his notes on the race. This will make excellent reading, he tells you. A future bestseller, if I may be so bold. You have an insurmountable lead over your rival. After crossing endless miles of dark water, you rediscover the coastline, where the Iron Republic asserts its anarchic dominion. So close, that lawless city, raindrops rise from the sea and soar towards the ceiling. Colourless lightning crackles across your hull. The buildings on the coast flicker, and the bricks as solid as a pyre. Something is wrong. Your fingers lengthen and intertwine. A swan flies backwards above, weeping like a struck child. The lawlessness of the Iron Republic should not extend so far from the coast, not unless a scorious storm is coming. So beyond here lies the Grand Geode, where the race will be over. Well, let's batten down the hatches, literally and metaphorically. Scorious storms are rare, confusing, and occasionally lethal. Industrial runoff from the law furnaces has resulted in a rolling bank of repleted, misbegotten, and self-violating laws rolling out from the Iron Republic, temporarily reshaping everything in its path. The Z churns flesh-wise. The air is a mist of soup and tar. Hands of light rise from the depths, crawling weakly. The storm is nearly upon you. So we would have had 3 options, but we only actually have 1. If we had the hellish hymn, which we don't, you are seized by the sudden, overwhelming urge to sing. You have just the verse, a song to right the upside-down world. That sounds like a very useful song. Or if we had a submarine, we could have dived, but we do not have a submarine. Your submarine is an island of safety, sanity, and stability. No, we have to endure the storm. The storm reaches you. With skillful sailing, you manage to ensure you're only caught at the periphery, but it's still harrowing enough. Your mind tastes of peacock feathers. Your eyes serenade the end of summertime. Your mouth hears the warbling curvature of your spine. After that, you remember only glimpses. Your racing yacht opening its jaws and disgorging a torrent of squealing, chittering mice into the Z. The Seafarer dancing the waltz with a shimmering man made from lightning and mercury. Finally, it passes, leaving you stunned and adrift on a suddenly becalmed Z. One by one, your crew recover their senses. The excursionist is still recovering from the effects of the law storm. He keeps rubbing the points of his scalp where the antlers emerged. They're gone now, wilted like autumn leaves. It happens so gradually, you scarcely notice. After many more miles of darkness, you realize the air is tinged with light. It's a sullen glow, the color of overbrewed tea. The grand geode appears on the horizon not much later. A glittering dome, the jewel in the Admiralty's crown. The Z here echoes with the muffled booms of vast machines. The time has come. So we have two options. We can warn the excursionist a final time you're approaching the grand geode, and you're in the lead. That means the new sequence are about to make their move. Or we can say nothing. What use would it be? Your warning was ignored once. I'm going to warn him. The excursionist stands at the ship's helm, anxiously consulting a compass. He listens to your warning, pinching the bridge of his nose. I must admit, he says, it sounds terribly fanciful to me. It's too late to change course anyway. We'll just have to keep our eyes peeled, what? Your ship stays the course. As you glide deeper into the waters surrounding the grand geode, you develop a migraine. You find yourself staring at your hands, unable to lift your gaze. When you blink, your mind pulses with aching light. The rest of the crew are similarly affected, groaning, rubbing their eyes, slumping at their posts. Oh dear, I thought we might be able to fight this, but I'm starting to feel we may not. A flash of light leaves flickering spots across the world. Blinking away tears, you find that your racing yacht is surrounded by 4 enormous Admiralty warships circling you like vultures. Their cannons swivel to face you. One of the warships pulls up alongside you. Congratulations to the victors, bellows a marine. Please surrender peacefully. There's no time for reply or resistance. The marines storm your ship, heavy boots thudding across metal. They grab the excursionist, shove a burlap sack over their head, and bundle them away. Now the rest of you, snarls the marine. Line up, hands behind your heads. Don't worry, you're not going to remember any of this. I think this did not go even remotely how I planned. Okay, sneak to a lifeboat and make your escape. You know what will happen if you obey. Your memories will be consumed by commanding light. All this will have been for naught. Or we can put up a fight. There are too many of them. It's hopeless, but it feels wrong not to try. I reckon we should try to sneak on a lifeboat and bugger off. Or should we fight? A small part of me thinks if we fight, it does say and accomplish nothing. It says it in the... Let's sneak onto a lifeboat and get the hell out of here. As the rest of the crew line up, you slip away and climb into a lifeboat. Concealed beneath a tarpaulin, you untie the ropes and drop quietly into the Z. You watch as the racing yacht is towed away by the Admiralty warships. Once they are gone, you are plunged into lonely darkness. On the vastly indifferent Z, your lifeboat feels about as sturdy as a matchbox. All you have for sustenance is half a pack of biscuits and, in a pinch, a damp candle. So we could wait for rescue. Yes, you're untold miles from London, and your lifeboat just sprang a leak, but you're an optimist at heart. Or we could await our end. There can be no rescue, not out here. I'm going to go for the wait your rescue. I'm not giving up. You wait for hours, silent and shivering. Then, something flutters overhead. It alights on your shoulder, squeaking and nuzzling your ear. A messenger bat. Fumbling, your fingers numbed by cold, you untie the message. Too dark to read. You painstakingly light the damp candle with sparks from a nail against the hull. Then squint at the letter in the dwindling light. It's a messily scrawled letter from the Seafarer. It is, you think, congratulating you graciously on your hard-earned victory, though it could possibly be hiding some grave insults among the nautical vernacular. Biting your fingertip, you write a plea for help in blood on the other side and send the messenger bat off again. An hour later, you've been hauled aboard the annotated Seafarer's racing yacht. A blanket is placed over your shoulders, a cup of coca in your hands. Bliss like this should be illegal. Once you've warmed up, the Seafarer sits you down in her cabin and pours you a nip of rum. Tell us the tale from clue to earring, she says. You tell her about the new sequences, the ambush, the kidnap of the excursionist. You remind her also that you warned them both of this very scheme, and they were too stubborn to listen. She weighs your word. She paces back and forth. She puffs her pipe and stares from the porthole. You and the excursionist are the victors, she says finally. Let's go spring the bastard from the sun swallowers. We get to devise a plan to rescue the excursionist. Yes, this is what I wanted. The sequencers expect the seafarer to sail happily to Port Carnelian and accept her prize. A break-in will be the last thing on their minds. The Grand Geode, the Admiralty's most closely guarded outpost. You stay up all night with the seafarer, poring over maps and sketching possible lines of attack. Unfortunately, communication issues plague your discussion. She says you need to make free with the land. When you ask her to speak in layman's terms, she accuses you of whistling palms to the taffrail. Finally, frustrated, you ask what happened to her helpful boot. Didn't it used to translate her incomprehensible nautical slang? What happened since she left London? You can't help but notice that she is no longer wearing it. Got into a corroboree with me galley, she mutters. Seeing the expression, she attempts to elucidate. Corroboree argument wit. The thing I wear on me starboard web. She gestures at her foot. Why was she arguing with her own footwear? Honestly, now you've heard everything. She sighs heavily. Now the race is good as over, I decided to tell me boots something I've been keeping under the rose all this time. I could have reunited it with its missing pair, you see. The Fathom King told me if I threw me boot in Toggin, you sees your expression, I mean into Z, it'd make its way back to him. She scowls. Then the boots would be a pair again. But they're my boots. Why should I give my one up? So I argued. And the Fathom King told me I could buy the other boot back with sapphires. I need me galley, you see, says the seafarer defensively, else landlubbers don't understand me charming nautical vernacular. And besides, we're friends. Is it wrong to want to hold on to a friend? Hang on, she's speaking pretty good English right now. Like, just straight up English. Tell the seafarer she should have told the truth. She should have spoken to the helpful boot and taken its feelings into consideration. Its first priority is obviously to reunite with this other boot. Tell the seafarer she was justified. What's the problem? She's going to win the cup and then buy back the other boot from the Fathom King, right? Then all will be forgiven. She should have told the truth. Maybe you're right, says the seafarer. I just didn't want to lose me galley, you know. I was afeard. You offer her a nip of rum, but she refuses. Don't run a wet ship, she says. I only take a drop of the creature when I'm on land. It's the way I get me ground legs. She plants her pipe in her mouth and puffs thoughtfully, staring at the tendrils as they spiral to the ceiling. Ah, bugger it, she says, and exits the cabin. Sometime later, she returns, wearing the helpful boot proudly on one foot. You suppose apologies have been made. It translates for her uncomplainingly, and your plans take shape with startling speed. You've moored your ship in a rocky cove out of sight of Navy patrols. The seafarer sends out loyal sailors in lifeboats, posting them on rocky outcrops with spyglasses and notebooks. A day later, lifeboats are sent to collect the shivering and miserable volunteers. Thanks to their observations, you have an understanding of patrol routes. They can be avoided. Now, if only you could find an unguarded entrance to the geode itself. Now, if we'd come here before, we could have used unburnt quality to draw on old memories. But I'm afraid my seafaring experience in Fallen London is somewhat to be desired. So we have to search for an unguarded ingress. You and the seafarer climb into a lifeboat and push out to Z. If you're seen by patrols, it's over. It's not easy to circle the perimeter of the Grand Geode. while also evading the notice of the huge iron warships. Every time one passes by, you steer your tiny boat into hiding behind a spike of rock or coral. Every time, the great ship's wake almost capsizes you. Finally, you spot a promising candidate, a great sea pipe drawing in a steady gurgle of seawater. It's big enough to fit your boat. Presumably it's being used to cool some great engine. It's perfect. There's a grate, of course, but it's so rusted that it crumbles with a few kicks. "Luck to us," says the seafarer, lifting her lantern as the cavernous pipe swallows you. Okay, so the longer you spend in the Grand Geode, the worse your headache. The geode is a gleaming, glorious maze of glass and steel trapped within a dome of endlessly refracting crystal. You see none of this. You see inside of a big pipe. Water froths and spurts beneath your hull. Lantern light flickers wildly across curved iron. Hollow machine thumps and vulture screeches echo from the world above. Cold light filters through an iron grate overhead. You stop your momentum with an oar and look up, only to find your nose 6 inches from a pair of boot soles. 2 sequencers are standing above you, engaged in conversation. You recognize a voice. The Commodore. You can eavesdrop on the Commodore. Ooh. He must have journeyed straight back here as soon as the Icarian Cup began, presumably by a less circuitous route. Yes, the adventurer with the devil obsession and a dozen books to his name, Commodore is saying. I'm not surprised. He was my pick after the pirate poet pulled out. A worthy winner for sure. I hope they appreciate the honor we've bestowed on them, says the other sequencer. To be the vessel of the divine I cannot imagine. They are duly grateful, says the Commodore. They earned it. They proved the surest hand at the tiller in the whole of the Neath. May I speak to them? Soon. For now they must remain locked in the Melifmene vault to reflect on their good fortune. The 2 sequencers walk away from the grate, their voices fading. You lift the oar and allow yourself to be swept onward. The water quickens. Ahead you can hear the ominous thundering of some great machine. Fortunately, before you discover what lies at the end of the pipe, you notice a maintenance hatch overhead. You tie up the boat. The hatch's lock is not difficult to pick. Soon, the 2 of you are wandering within the smoke-choked industrial labyrinth, the Grand Geode. So we can search for the vault where the excursionist is imprisoned. The Melpomene Vault, the Commodore said. Sounds like somewhere in the geode's depths, not its heights. You descend. The seafarer is not naturally stealthy. Her heavy, helpful boot stamps on the metal floors in a particularly unhelpful way. Nevertheless, you somehow evade detection. Not that there aren't close calls. At one point you hide as a full squadron of marines march by, singing a solemn hymn in perfect harmony. Eventually, after descending a staircase of spiraling steel, you find yourself at the center of a circle of 9 heavy doors. One of them is labeled the Melpomene Vault. The Melpomene Vault is an enormous, man-made cavern opening out onto the sea. A ship is moored at port, a ship unlike any other, spined and beamed in ivory. A hull of rippling flesh, banded with blood-stained iron. No engine, no steam chimney, a sail of shark skin. It takes a moment to understand what you're seeing. Lashed to the prow where the figurehead might have been sculpted on an ordinary ship is a shape you mostly recognize. The excursionist. Pulsing tendrils of flesh emerge from their shoulder blades, fusing them immovably to the ship. Their eyes are flecked with gold. They are smiling. Let's ask the excursionists what's been done to them. Their smile widens until the corners bleed. "This is the prize," says the excursionist in a dreamy voice. "Glory, greater than sapphires." "Odds Firkin!" The seafarer backs away, clawing at her face in horror. "What's been done to him? What's been done to the poor bastard?" In what world is this a glorious fate? The excursionist's smile does not falter. "I am to be an emissary, a missionary, a seed. My mind shall shine like the honey of stars. Past Adam's Way I'll go, up to the Red River's source. Only a living, thinking ship could make the journey," they were told. So they sought the finest mind at sea. So this is it. The sole purpose of the Icarian Cup is take a captain and make them a ship. "Not the sole purpose," says the smiling figurehead. "The eyes of dawn were upon us from the start. Enraptured, the race was a grand amusement." You gaze into the figurehead's gold-swirled eyes. Not a hint of revulsion, or fear, or doubt. Only the fiercest joy. Perhaps there is no hope for the excursionist. But it's not been too long since they were captured. Perhaps they will recover themselves if removed from the Grand Geode entirely. Oh my god. That seems bad. So we have three options. We can rescue the figurehead. The excursionist struggles desperately against your attempts to free him, but it's for his own good. He will understand. We can leave the figurehead to their fate. It's too late to save him. Bye-bye. Or we can recognize the joy in the figurehead's eyes. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one is this one. Choose this. It will lock you into an ending that assures the Dawn Machine's supremacy. Now I'm pretty sure the Dawn Machine's supremacy is actually the canon. But I'm going to try and rescue this poor man. That was my plan. "I'll get his legs," says the seafarer, producing a knife and sawing at the tangled ropes of flesh that connect to the excursionist to the ship's prow. You climb up and perform similar butchery upon the tendrils bunched around his shoulder blades. The excursionist doesn't make it easy. "Leave me be," he roars, thrashing at you with what limited movement remains to him. "No, I am adjacent. Rejoice, rejoice." Finally, the seafarer clobbers him over the back of the head, and he falls still. "You'll thank me later," she says. You drag the limp, bleeding excursionist away from the ship and use ripped clothing to bandage up the ragged wounds across his back. With that, you dash out of the melamine vault, dragging an unconscious excursionist between you. You make your way to your little lifeboat in its cooling pipe and row, with great difficulty, back upstream. The ship picks you up outside the Grand Geode, and you steam away as fast as you can. Many hours after the Grand Geode is out of sight, the excursionist, who's been tied up for his own safety, finally stops struggling. Instead, they sob. The crew gather in mute sympathy. For a time, the only sound on the sea is weeping. He does not speak until the next day, when you find him huddled out on deck, staring across the waves. He has a cup of tea cradled in his hands. "I was so happy," he says. "That's the worst of it. A part of me misses it." A long pause, broken by occasional sips. The teacup is set aside, empty. "By the way, when we reach Port Carnelian, I want you to take the Icarian Cup. We won together, but you deserve it more. Without you, I'd still be singing hymns." He raises a placatory hand. "No, it's final. I don't want the bloody thing." But we can sail on to Port Carnelian. The finish line, at last, beckons. The voyage is uneventful until Port Carnelian opens up ahead of you. A crescent of stolid little buildings, bordering miles of bristling mushroom-white jungle. Your crew cheer You've won the Icarian Cup. As you approach, you see the docks are thronged by a crowd of citizens, officials, sapphire miners, and even a few tigers. They're yelling and stamping in approval. Fireworks explode overhead as your racing yacht slides triumphantly into port. As you disembark, the crowd's cheers somehow double in volume. A dozen corks pop from a dozen bottles of champagne. Flags are waved furiously in your face. Innumerable excited citizens rush to shake your hand and clap your back until your whole body aches. An extravagant stagecoach rattles down the pier. It conveys you to Heartscross House in style and comfort. The governor calls you up to a podium outside his mansion. He's holding an impressive gold trophy engraved on one side with a depiction of a winged yacht. It is, you are gratified to see, filled to the brim with sparkling sapphires. When the excursionist announces that you should be the one to receive the cup, the governor almost drops it. This is most irregular, but very well. The governor hands the trophy to an aide, then retrieves a pre-written speech from his coat and coughs meaningfully. All of us here at Port Carnelian are so gratified to present to you, on the Admiralty's behalf, this token of your outstanding achievement. When the governor's speech concludes, he hands the Icarian Cup to you with a flourish. You raise it over your head. The crowd roar and stamp and applaud. The celebrations last long into the night. Wow, we gained a bazaar permit. Those things are quite hard to get. We also got 12 sapphires and 3 favours in high places. Oh, and a night on the town. Days pass in sweltering heat as you while away hours in Port Carnelian, putting off your return to London. You go fishing with the governor, you sample the local brewed mushroom wines and dance until morning. You debate philosophy with the tiger and emerge unscathed. So we could speak to the emulous excursionist. He rescued him from the prow of a living ship. He won the Icarian Cup, though the world doesn't know it. What now? You find him at a doctor's office, having a pungent jelly rubbed into the slowly healing wounds across his shoulder blades. It's much better these days, he says, wincing. Though I still can't sleep on my back, and my dreams are gold and amber. You'll be leaving for London immediately. Will he be following any time soon? Yes, I will be returning to London, says the excursionist. I'm going to write one more book. Perhaps I'll buy a house, and I think I'm done with life at the Z. What about his unrequited love for a particular devil? The excursionist sighs and plucks at the bandages on his back. I've tasted what it's like to ascend to a higher state of being. I didn't care for it. Devils are welcome to enjoy their place in the hierarchy. I'll leave them to it. Before you go to pack your things, the excursionist insists on taking you for dinner and regaling you with stories of his past adventures. There are things the ministry wouldn't allow him to publish. He tells you of the wondrous things he saw on an ill-fated expedition to the Presperite fossilized cities and groves of archived moonlight. Awesome. And let's speak to the seafarer. She came with you to the Grand Geode. London believes she won the Icarian Cup. What will she do now? You find her standing on a mushroom-fringed beach, drinking from a dusty bottle and watching the coal-black waves roll in, alone. Well, not quite alone. The helpful boot dangles from her hand by its laces. She nods as you approach and tosses you a now empty bottle. What cheer? Come to field of shrimps, she asks. Look out to Z, translates the boot wearily. You reply in the negative. You're here to talk to her before you return to London. Well, you're just in time, she says, and points. A figure is emerging from the waves, dripping, sodden, kelp-plastered. A drownie, its eyes pale with rot. It holds a tough, all-leather boot, waterlogged but otherwise identical to the helpful boot. The seafarer wades out into the shallows. An exchange takes place. A handful of sapphires cascade into the drowny's decaying palm. It hands over the boot, then lurches back into the depths. Back on dry land, the seafarer pulls the now matching pair of helpful boots onto her feet and laughs. The boots scream with joy. "Thank ye for everything," says the seafarer, shaking your hand. "I hope we cross paths again. Long may your big jib draw." "Good luck," translate the helpful boots in unison. The seafarer turns back to Z and raises her voice in a defiant, joyful song. Like thunder and the breaking of waves, the boots sing with her. Say goodbye to the seafarer and the excursionist. You're returning to London, but first the two rival captains have asked to speak to you one last time. Together. You spend one last night celebrating with both the seafarer and excursionist, eating a wonderful 3-course meal at Port Carnelian's finest seafood restaurant. Plans are made to meet again, toasts are drunk, songs are sung. Your rivalry throughout the race is, needless to say, quite forgotten. You set off from Port Carnelian in your racing yacht the next day. Matters await in London. No doubt the Gazette will want to interview you on your part in the Cup. The dark speckled admiral awaits a report. Those can be dealt with another day. You close your eyes and listen to the creak of the hull, the engine's rumble, the slow, murmuring heartbeat of the Z. You rescued the true winner of the Cup, and they gave the prize to you in gratitude. As your racing yacht pulls into Wolfstack docks, it is met by a jubilant crowd. Readers of the Gazette have been breathlessly following your fortunes in the race, day by day, and now they finally have a chance to give the bearer of the Cup the reception they deserve. Neither the seafarer nor the excursionist have returned from Port Carnelian, and have professed themselves unlikely to return to London anytime soon. Naturally, you become the focus of the public's excitement. The next few days are a congratulatory whirl. A reporter from the Gazette sits you down for a bubbly interview and some bubblier champagne. You are invited to dinner parties, speaking engagements, graduation ceremonies. Friends and vague acquaintances knock constantly at your door. Among the flood of hangers-on and well-wishers, there is one man noticeably missing. A week later, once the fuss has died down, you pay a visit to the dark speckled admiral. In Mansion Spire, he steeples his fingers. He looks you up and down. Well? As you speak, your mouth reflected in his spectacles, he makes notes with the neatness and efficiency of a mechanical loom. As you explain what you saw in the Grand Geode, the Admiral's eyebrows raise further than you'd thought possible. His pen hand is a blur. I see. Please describe the ship in more detail. Shark skin? Interesting. When you describe rescuing the figurehead from the living ship, his mouth lifts frantically at the corners. Excellent. When you finally finish, the Admiral sits back and adjusts his spectacles. Sterling work, he says. Despite your admirable efforts to rescue the figurehead, I have no doubt another will be procured. Perhaps the Commodore himself will volunteer for the role. Who knows? I will send word to an acquaintance at the Mythendrake office. I am sure they can nip this in the bud. He slides his notebook across the desk. It's crammed with details of those in the upper echelons of society who have collaborated with the new sequence. Here, for your time, I'll give you 20 minutes to peruse my notes. I'm not sure you can find a use for such information. As you leave the Admiral's office, you see him watching you from the window, his spectacles glinting with reflected gaslight. His mouth is curled into something like triumph. We gained 20 memories of a tale and 1 blackmail material. And we have finished the exceptional story. Wonderful. Here we are, back in London. I loved every second of that, so much so that this episode has gone on for like 20 minutes longer than it should have, because I was enjoying myself too much. We got to the Grand Geode and I was like, let's keep going. That was wonderful writing, a wonderful story, and it had a good ending. I have nothing bad to say about it. This will probably be the last exceptional story before Christmas and New Year, so I hope all of you have a wonderful Christmas this year and a good New Year too. And I will probably, if you watch my other videos, they will still be here, but if you are just a Fallen London person, I will probably see you in the new year. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And as always, I'll see you next time.